right, good afternoon. Welcome in on this Friday Maize Blue review. Good afternoon, Michigan football. Everybody knows what's going on. It's just counting down the time to Monday, which is weird because it's a Friday. Usually you're all excited about the weekend, but everybody knows why. We got a good show for you planned here today. Coming up straight ahead, Jerry Diorio will talk about the Rose Bowl and the national championship game on Monday. We'll take your feedback. We'll see where you're at right now with the game headed into Friday. Any questions that you might have. But as we have done all year long and bowl season, we on Sharpening the Edge have Lucas Reimink from the Maize Blue Review staff, and he is on the line ready to look at this game coming up on Monday. Lucas, how are you?
Doing well, absolutely thrilled to be talking about this game because it means Michigan won the Rose Bowl, like we were talking about last week. That was, first of all, I want to start with that game. What a tremendous game, tremendous finish. Obviously, the way it played out, I did not have a lot of confidence that Michigan was going to be able to pull through in the end, but they got the job done when they needed to the most. Obviously, going to overtime there and stopping Milrow in a 4th and goal to clinch it. That was just a great game, one of the best games probably I've ever watched. As a Michigan fan, just on pins and needles the entire time, and obviously the winning result in that iconic venue and that iconic moment, just one of the best games I've ever seen.
Well, you did a good job picking it because you picked Michigan in that game. And in the nightcap, you also picked the underdog Washington Huskies, and we'll get to them in a moment. I want to congratulate you. You and I, let's say it went head to head. I mean, we picked all of the bowl games, and you beat me in the selecting the game. So congratulations there. But it was a good job, I'll also say, by myself by picking the Washington Huskies to take on the Wolverines in the championship game. As you look at this game, it's tough when you're a Michigan fan to say, okay, well, you like the 4.5 or whatever else. That's what it is right now. It's 4.5 points. Michigan's favored by an over and under of 55. When you look at this game, what do you think?
Yeah, so I actually like Michigan here for a few different reasons. I talked about it when they were playing Texas. For Washington, obviously, everyone talks about the passing attack. You have Michael Penix, who's probably going to end up going in the first round next year when it's all said and done. They have 3 receivers who are all like day 1 or day 2 NFL draft picks. Dunze for sure going to be a first rounder, I would imagine, next year. McMillan and Polk, they both have eligibility left. At least one of them probably is going to go as well. Probably going to be more of a day 2 selection, but both of those guys are also very, very legit. And on Michigan's offense, they'd be the number 1 wide receiver. I do think, I think Roman Wilson might be a day 2, early day 3 pick as well. So he's not like too terribly far off, but they legitimately have 3 guys who are top 100 NFL draft picks next spring, just playing wide receiver. And that's not even talking about Michael Penix. So very talented passing attack. NFL dudes still playing in college. They're all older as well. But it's really just a matchup thing for me, at least with Texas. Texas all year, it's had one of the best defensive lines in the country. So a lot of their statistics on defense, they look okay. When you kind of look under the hood, though, their secondary was far more susceptible than anything else of their defense. I picked Washington pretty much just off the fact that it's just a really bad matchup for Texas. I think Texas overall might be a better team. If they play that game 100 times, they might win 55 to 60 of them. But just with the way the matchups were going to present themselves, I thought there was a pretty good chance that Washington would end up winning that game, and they even won it more handily than I was anticipating it going. But then just kind of watching how it played out and how it relates to this game, not sure there's a ton of correlation there, just to be totally honest. Texas' secondary has a lot of holes. They have a lot of issues. I just don't see that from Michigan's secondary in the same way. Will Johnson's probably going to be a first-round corner. Next spring, obviously not quite eligible yet. Rod Moore and Mikey Sainer still, both in my opinion, are probably top 100 picks if they go out this year, or if Rod Moore, if he elects to come back, will probably be day 2 or maybe even sneak into day 1 of the following draft. So Michigan's secondary is much more talented, both on paper, and all the metrics pretty much support that. as well. I posted this on the board earlier, so if you're a subscriber, you can go look at that. I was looking into the passing efficiency for both the teams, and the pass efficiency offenses, both Michigan and Washington. Michigan's actually fifth, and Washington's 11th. So technically, on like a down-to-down and per attempt basis, Michigan's passing offense is actually a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more efficient in that way. And then you kind of compare the team pass efficiency defenses. Michigan's third in the country. Washington's down at 32nd. So quite a difference there in disparity of obviously the passing attacks for the offense are actually somewhat similar statistically, despite what you might believe. And then on the defense, there's quite a contrast. Michigan being one of the best in the country at defending the pass, and Washington still being good. They're still pretty good overall defending the pass, but down there at 32nd. So I just don't see the edge there, even though everybody in the media is kind of going to talk about probably all weekend and has been talking about all week how Washington's going to have so much success through the air. They're going to chuck it all over the yard. How is Michigan going to defend it? I actually, based on the metrics, I really don't think it's going to be that much of an issue for Michigan. People have talked about this a little bit this week. I really believe they're going to go heavy cover 2, soft cover 2, soft cover 3, soft cover 4 style that they did a lot against 2021 Ohio State. You remember C.J. Stroud and all those great receivers at JSN, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. I think that's kind of the style that it'll be a bend but don't break type effort. I think they're going to control. They want to keep Washington's offense from making any big plays down the field. I think they're going to be able to limit Washington's effectiveness with the run game. And I think Dylan Johnson's injury might be a factor there as well. I'm not sure if he's really going to be 100% in this one. But Michigan's D-line is elite. They've been elite all year. I think they're the best D-line in the country. And I think their secondary is also among the top 10 in the country. So I really think this is going to be Michigan's game to lose. I think as long as they don't turn the ball over well, they should be able to move the ball and do pretty much whatever they want, kind of pick your poison, whether throw or pass. I think they'll be able to do both fairly successfully against this Washington defense. I think they'll have no problem moving the ball, and I think it'll really just be about forcing Washington to kick field goals instead of score touchdowns. So I have this game kind of playing out in the 38-27 range. So I'd have Michigan covering there pretty easy, and I also like the over as well. And in any Michigan game, a quorum touchdown is also a good thing. So you want a bonus bet? This is what I did. Is I just combined the 3, a quorum touchdown, Michigan to cover, and the over there, and it was plus 300. So I think those are pretty good odds. I think that's a pretty solid bet. That's how I see this game going.
We're kind of in lockstep. I have Michigan winning this game 35-27. That puts it over the 55.5. And if I was looking, that's Michigan by 8. I also then like Michigan over the 34.5, and that gets you plus 150. So that's not bad there as well if you want to kind of spray the board. And I love making touchdown bets as well. So that's good. I would say, you're right about the turnovers. I am also going to add that the special teams needs to perform like it did the first 13 games and not like it did in the Rose Bowl, because that almost cost them. And they were lucky that last muff, that spinning ball down there by the goal line with Thaw and everything else, no more stuff like that. And, that's how you can end up losing a ball game. But they didn't.
It's also, just watching that game at the beginning, it was wow, this is this is the TCU, the game all over again. It's mistakes they haven't made all year and just coming up in the biggest moments. But I don't know. I just give a ton of credit for the way they're able to bounce back. They had so many things that they screwed up and messed up last week, and they still came back and beat a really good Bama team. Defense, it's really hard to move the football against, and Sharon did a great job scheming up plays and doing a lot of creative things with the shifts and motioning. I just think with everything that went wrong in that one, it's very unlikely to me that they're going to repeat those mistakes. They're going to have this week off here to come back, sharpen up in the special teams. Those mistakes hadn't happened all year up to that point. So I don't think it's super likely they will repeat themselves, but it is something to keep an eye on, because if they lose, it'll be some sort of special teams or turnover issue that would be the reason.
I'm with you on that. Enjoy the game. We're right there on how we see it playing out. It's been fun all year long. It's been a fun ride. It continues into Monday night. Have a great rest of the day, and I know you'll enjoy Monday. So we'll talk with you soon.
Absolutely. Go Blue.
There he is. Lucas Reimink joining us here. We'll talk with Jerry Diorio in just a minute. Taking a look here, I don't know, Rob is saying that I've got a notification heading out somewhere else. I do a sports update. I wanted to do something different in the new year, and there's a lot of folks that I think they get intimidated when they see this YouTube feed and they think like an hour long, or like, whoa. And even in some of the comments that I get, not necessarily on the feed while I'm going, but comments under the podcast, a couple of comments have been like, yeah, not a bad podcast, but it just goes too long. My thought is like, just listen to what you want and then turn it off or something, or go back, but there's a lot of people that they look at it and they're just like, I can't listen to something you can jam it all down into 5 minutes. If you're, I think the younger you are, the less time, like maybe you just want like a 20-second hit on TikTok. Michigan's playing Washington. Hey, I like Michigan to win 35-17. Boom. That's it. And then you can replay and watch it over and over and over again, get a couple quick cuts, and it's over. So there is that I'll do 15 minutes before coming on. I think that's what you're talking about. So I don't know. That's it. Richard talking about the kickers can't play anymore nervously. Yeah, whatever happened, whether Tommy Doman has been great all year long, and then he wasn't so great on one of the holds, and then his kicks weren't so awesome, and then Samaj Morgan looking up on the punt, and then Thaw, muffing that one. They got a break. They got a break there. But, if I don't know how you look at it, I look at it like, unless there's something wrong with Doman, which there could have been, and we don't know about that. Maybe we'll never know, so that could be a situation. But if everything's right and they're back, they're not playing on grass, it'll be on turf coming up in NRG Stadium where the Texans play. That's what Michigan is more familiar with. So I'm thinking that they'll play like they did for the majority of the season, the first 13 games on special teams. And, not that they need to, you say clean that up. It's just, they had a bad game. Doesn't mean that's going to continue. I know we're always like what happened last game, kind of feel like it's going to happen this game. I mentioned it as well. So I get what you're talking about when you get there. And, I'm thinking about some TikTok here too in the new year. So there you go. We got that going on. Well, let's connect with former Wolverine Jerry Diorio, who has joined us all year long on this Friday. First, I want to tell everyone that, I tell you every show, and I want to be really honest about this. I want you to join the Maize and Blue Review. I want you to join the Maize and Blue Review today. You do that by going to michigan.rivals.com. Everything that you want to know. You heard Lucas talking about passing efficiency and everything else. Every number, everything that can be analyzed going on over there at the Maize and Blue Review on the Den, as you might expect. Everybody is tense and fired up and ready to go all day, all night, right up until kickoff, and then beyond in 2024 with what's going on with Michigan recruiting, transfer portal, and all of that. So join the Maize and Blue Review today. Go to michigan.rivals.com. Let's now talk with Jerry Diorio. Let's connect with the former Wolverine now. And here he is, Jerry Diorio, joining us back from Pasadena, like all the Wolverines, and pretty happy, I would imagine, to talk about this game this past Monday. Jerry, how are you?
Great to be a Michigan Wolverine, Denny. Outstanding. I just so proud of our young men. It was a great time out there.
Yeah, tell me what the experience was like. Give it to me. I've been out there and, watching it on TV and having been there. It was incredible. I would imagine being there, it was like 100 times, more incredible. So, give me the highlights.
Well, you've been there, Denny, and you know this. It's kind of surreal. I mean, you're on at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. It's like hallowed grounds. It's the Mecca of football, and has been, always will be. And I think Kurt Herbstreit made the comment that all finals should be played there, and I would probably agree with that. I mean, the Rose Bowl agenda should be somewhere in the semifinals or finals of every playoff. It was a great experience. Got to see some old friends I haven't seen in ages. Mel Owens, I haven't seen him in 4 decades, 40 years. Loved seeing him. It was a great time seeing him. Ed Moransky, Johnny Wangler, Vince DeFelice, Norm Betts, just a tremendous amount of people. I saw my Joel Metzger's parents, my former player at Lakeview. I saw his parents out there at the tailgate. And it's just an incredible experience. It was a beautiful day. It was a sunny day, and that's not guaranteed out there. It was gray and gloomy the day before, so it was a sunny day. It was a beautiful sunny day. We didn't go to see the parade or anything like that, but we took plenty of pictures, and the joy of being there at the end of the game was incredible. And there, not too many Rose Bowls go down to that wire. And here it was, overtime, two of the most storied universities in college football history going down to overtime. And right in our end zone, which was probably the best thing that happened to Michigan all day, was losing the coin toss and getting to request the end zone that we were in, because that was totally a Michigan crowd down there.
Well, let's start at the end. They get the 4th down stop, but they make some big plays in there. Mason Graham came in. Josh Wallace had to make a stop on 3rd down. I mean, you go through that. I think it was Junior Colson, coming up with a big tackle. I mean, all these guys, this defense played incredible. But what about the final play? Because they come out there, and then Michigan calls timeout, and or Bama calls a timeout. Then they have to go, and then they go with it.
A lot of pacing during that period of time, Denny. I was pacing pretty good. I was sitting right at the tunnel where you come in. I was row 24, and so I had a nice exit right to the tunnel right there. So that's where I was pacing that whole time, waiting for all these timeouts to go, because it was just nerve-wracking. It was a very intense situation. The last play, Stewart is a stud. Stewart is a stud. He sent that offensive tackle right back in Milroe's lap. And it was just a dominating play by Stewart. You look at Mason Graham on that play. He's holding his own. I think who's number 8? That was
Eric Moore.
Eric Moore did a nice job in there. Grant did a nice job in there. Sanders still was there. So, I mean, that play was pretty much dead. I know some of the critics after the game were saying it was wide open. I don't know what they were looking at, because it looked pretty crowded in there.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of built a wall. And like you said, it's pretty surprising. I mean, Josiah Stewart, when he was coming in and you looked at some of his film from Coastal Carolina, it was like, this is a sack master. This is somebody that's going to get after the quarterback. And for him to throw the 350-pound guy back like that, the leverage that he had, that was, one for the ages. Michigan gets to overtime. They go with 2 runs. I know, Jerry, even if you weren't a former offensive lineman, you would like it. But, I'm pretty sure, because you're an offensive lineman, and when you played, you kind of liked how they just lined up and went with the old bread and butter there in overtime.
I've been calling that for weeks now, and I'll tell you one thing, Denny. I said run to the quick side, and the quick side was open. Big play by Corum in the first period that got us out to the 50. Big run by JJ in the fourth quarter that got our drive a second life. So the quick side was open, but it looked like the strong side was open too, because that's where both of those runs came from. I thought up front we totally dominated Alabama, both sides of the ball. Their offensive line, you you have 5 sacks in the first half. That's a dominating performance. I don't care what anybody says. You know, JJ throwing for over 200 and rushing for over 100. The team rushing for over 100. That's pretty dominating performance by the University of Michigan football team. And you know, nothing to. I don't want to beat up Samaj at all, because he's had a great freshman year and he's going to have a phenomenal career at the University of Michigan. But if he doesn't drop that punt, Michigan probably wins by 10 going away in regulation. I mean, and if you look at that play, when he dropped it, he probably had another 10 yards to run minimum. If he catches that clean, he has another 10 yards to run minimum. And that's why they have Samaj back there, because 10 yards could be a breakaway for him. And so we've got to shore up some things on special teams. No doubt about it. When I say we played a B- C+ game, in my opinion. And I'm going to say it this way. The defense was A-. I thought the offense was B. And our special team was probably D-E. And,
yeah, well, you muff 2 punts, the one that you're talking about, and then if we're working backwards like we did in overtime, when we go to that last drive where you thought Michigan might have been able to get a last-second field goal before they had to go to overtime, but Thaw, who had been so dependable, and people were calling for somebody else to get in there. They wanted some playmakers, I guess. You know, I don't say I guess. I mean, I know that that's what people wanted, but you know, he showed his value in the Penn State game. You know, he went out there and had a really good game. And it was like a manager in the 9th inning going with a defensive replacement. I think even if Morgan would have caught that first one, I think, you know, you think Thaw's the one to, you know, to secure the ball back there, and then he drops it. It got so close, Jerry. That was your end zone, or was that the other end zone?
That was the other end zone. I've been watching that play. If you look at the spin on the ball, that is what saved our life right there. Is that spin on the ball. Stopped right before the goal line. And then think about it. Thaw turns around and he gets hit right now. That could have been a fumble. So we got a lot to do on special teams. And in my opinion, that last play, I wouldn't have minded just letting that ball bounce. And we got it on the 1 yard anyways. Maybe we should have gone after it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think they were thinking about maybe scoring there. I think if it was that's a good idea. If you're set up at the 10, maybe set up at the 15. If you say if it goes over your head, let it go. So
let it go. We've had too many problems all day long. Why risk it?
Before that, Michigan, you know, they get a stop to get the ball back, but you know that they go on the 75-yard drive, and they look like they got a break when they did. They forced a fumble with Milroe, and you thought that might be the break that they need because they really hadn't been doing anything. But then they missed a 49-yard field goal. Yep. And so then Bama comes back and nails a 52-yard field goal. I want to ask you, first, I guess I'll just start there. Was there a thought if Michigan scores there, considering that they had some issues? I know the punter, I mean, he's the holder, so maybe he's had a shaky game. The idea of maybe going for 2 there, did that cross your mind at all?
Several times.
Okay.
Several times. And a lot of people around us were talking about it. Obviously, they made the right decision. Great call. Kicking the extra point, putting it into overtime. And, you know, I think we had the momentum. I think we were better conditioned. I think we were deeper than Alabama, and it showed in the fourth quarter. I honestly believe that should have been a 10-point game in regulation. Michigan wins, but we had so many miscues on special teams that it kind of kept them in the game, really. Because when you look at it, the first half, other than the fumble and their score, Michigan dominated that game. Michigan dominated the first half. They totally dominated the second quarter. There's no question about that. The third quarter was tough because we had the bad field position. But we survived that third quarter. They come back, they score in the fourth quarter, take the lead, they get the field goal, and things are looking a little hairy. And then all of a sudden, Michigan goes on that 75-yard drive with really well-designed plays. The first play, giving it the ball to Corum, going away from the H-back. So you remember me talking about them keying the H-back, right? So if the H-back is going right and the play is going left, where's the linebackers? They're going right with the H-back. And so, Corum gets 8 yards on that.
Jerry, what about the people around you in the stadium when it's 4th and 2 from your own 40? Michigan did have all 3 timeouts. You knew the deal with their punter. Maybe that played into it, but the Michigan defense had played really well. And is that an easy decision, you think, for Jim Harbaugh to say he's going for it there? I mean, he's got to make it pretty quick, but obviously that one really worked out with one of the great plays on the 4th and 2. Corum, them, scheming him up so wide open, and then he blows it, into Bama territory.
It was a very well-designed play. I mean, they had a bunch set up over on that side. They moved Blake over right before the snap of the ball, and that bunch all went to the left, and Corum went to the right, and he was wide open. There was nobody on him. And to be honest with you, I think maybe Bama might have been thinking he's going to run the ball, or they're going to throw to one of the tight ends, and we didn't have our normal pass receiving kid in there. So maybe they were thinking run, but he was wide open. When you look at the game on the film, and I saw the film here, when you look at it, Michigan really executed that bunch formation to perfection, especially on the passes. Corum in the first half, wide open. Why? Because that bunch created a wall against the man coverage. They went with their man. The DBs went with the man. The linebackers have to try to climb over the bunch, which they're never going to do. And there's Corum free going into the end zone. On the play you're talking about, same thing, Denny. That bunch formation. Loveland streaks down, takes the corner out. Both inside guys cross. There's Corum out there wide open. There's no way. When you look at that play on film, Denny, the linebacker that was covering Corum was supposed to be over on the other side. And there's no way he's going to make that play. And so that whole last drive was just beautiful. That was I'm thinking to myself, where has that been all day? Because it was very well designed, and it was run to a T. It was beautiful.
Yeah, you played football and coached for a long time. If it was 5 years ago, people would be making a lot more of a big deal about going for it from your own 40. But in the last year or two, especially, it's like, it's almost the routine to see coaches do that. Is that an easy decision, you think, that when they were in the stands, everybody's like, oh, yeah, you go for it here?
No, not one bit. Not one bit. You're always hoping to convert on 3rd down. And that 4th down play is just nerve-wracking. I've been there many a time. I went for it on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 against Dexter in a playoff game, and we didn't get it. And they came down. They missed. They didn't score, so we ended up in overtime. But no, that's not an easy decision. That is a gutsy. That's where you make your money, by those kinds of decisions and converting them. It's one thing to make the decision. It's another thing to convert them. And when they're wide open like that, that's a heck of a play design.
Yeah, and then you already talked about it, that Roman Wilson catch. That ball's tipped. You probably had a good sight at that because that was down at your that was about where you were sitting right down there, right, with Wilson going up, and he kind of misjumped, but still was able to, grab that one of the great catches that you'll see.
I don't know what would have happened had he not tipped the ball. I think Roman Wilson would have been wide open, and he would have caught the ball anyways, and it would have been just like that. But when the ball got tipped, it gave Alabama an opportunity to come in, and when you look at their DB, just kind of overran Wilson. He just overran him, and Wilson come down with the ball and scoots to the 5-yard line. Great effort, great concentration. That's not an easy ball to catch right there.
Let me get some quick hitters to you. You already mentioned the Samaj Morgan muff punt, but you right after that, 4 plays, 44 yards, you get a 34-yard run against the Michigan defense. And, we're talking with good reason, especially now after the fact, how stout they are and how well they played. But, they give up the 34-yard touchdown. And then the first play of the game with McCarthy, you can say it set the tone. Whether you feel like they got lucky or not, the DB's foot being on the ground. I mean, those are 3 plays, like in all 3 phases of the game where it's like, wow, that's kind of a nightmare start.
thinking TCU at the beginning. I was thinking, what is going on? Why is JJ even throwing that ball? Why is it even close? And JJ does that. I mean, he tries to make plays all the time. So, you have to live with the good and the bad there. But hopefully, he won't do that anymore. At least against Washington this week. It was very nerve-wracking at the beginning. You got that interception. That was you're thinking TCU all over again. Then you got the muff punt. We get that if he just catches the ball. If he just catches the ball, fair catches it, we get the ball, I think it was a 35, 40 yard. That's good field position. And we went down on the next drive, like crap through a goose, excuse my language. But, went right through him on that first drive after the Alabama touchdown. And I think had he caught that ball, I think we would have scored at least a field goal there.
I think about so many games where it comes down, and you already said, that's where you get paid the big money, like going for 4th and 2. But there have been so many Michigan games, whether it's Ohio State, where it was, in 2016, it came down to the measurement. We could just keep going back and all kinds of like one play. And it really, Michigan, maybe Alabama would have gone for 2, whatever. But it essentially came down to one play there. But everybody, after, now I've seen it, like people say, it's a joke, SEC speed and, Nick Saban. But, if they were that close, I think a lot of the writers had that story already set up. Michigan can't win a bowl game. Here's 3 years in a row, Harbaugh and all that. Man, they were just ready to push send. But, you win that game and all of that stuff goes away, and, you win, and it's about the defense. And, even though McCarthy didn't have the greatest of games, he did have a great last drive, which is really when the money was on the line. And that's what it's all about. And then you do, you get it in a championship game. I didn't say you need a little luck. Maybe the thaw muff, where you talked about the spin on the ball or his hit. I mean, that feels like that would have been, I'd say that Michigan got a little lucky there.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes, ball bounces your way. How many times has the ball bounced against us? So many times.
A lot.
I remember the Charles White. I'm old enough to remember the Charles White Phantom TD fumbling at the 2-yard line. I mean, maybe this team is the team of destiny. I mean, this is the team. This is they win this national title. It's the greatest story in college football history, in my opinion.
Well, I would agree with you. Give me the small storyline of why, and I'll tell you. I'll see if we're on the same page there. Why would you think this would be the greatest story?
Well, I mean, let's admit something, that these scandals are worthless. They're trying to make something relevant that is not relevant anymore. And these scandals, the NCAA and the Big Ten did everything in their power, less suspending Michigan's season, to get Michigan out of the conversation of a national championship game. I don't think anybody can argue that. Michigan creates a 3-game suspension for Coach Harbaugh at the beginning of the season to appease a cheeseburger during COVID. Okay? When you've got all these other things going on in college football and you're going to concentrate on cheeseburgers during COVID, I think you're proving you're irrelevant. And for all these different scandals to come out the way they have, there's no real evidence anywhere. We don't know anything. Nobody knows anything about what's going on. But we do know now that Catapult, the film distribution company on the East Coast, is being investigated by the NCAA. We know that the team associated with Catapult is allegedly Ohio. Okay, so we've got a lot of things that are going to be coming out in the next 12 months. This should have never happened during the season. That is the unfair advantage. That's how kids get hurt, when their focus and concentration is averted by something that had nothing to do with the game. To do what they did to Coach Harbaugh the night before the Penn State game, they had to be ashamed of themselves. They should be fired immediately and move on. The Big Ten was embarrassed this bowl season. Ohio, Penn, Wisconsin, they got embarrassed this bowl season.
Iowa.
I don't know about you, Denny, but I believe the world is round for a reason, because what goes around comes around. They got embarrassed. They're having all kinds of issues now in the offseason with transfers leaving. So this was a complete joke, what they did and why. Why did they go after Coach Harbaugh? Because he's the one coming out and saying the players deserve revenue sharing of TV. And that's a fundamental. Absolutely agree with him. You've got 15 games that the University of Michigan and the University of Washington are playing. These kids are student athletes, supposedly. You call them student athletes when you don't want to pay them, but when you pay them, it's amateur. No, they're ridiculous in what their argument is. It's hypocrisy at its finest, and I'm so happy that Coach Harbaugh came out and did this for the student athletes. These players should be getting revenue. Who should get the revenue? The NCAA? The colleges? No. The product is the kids on the field. Those are the guys that should get the revenue.
Well, and
if that's what this whole thing is about.
And if they're able to get through on Monday night, they'll be able to look back. Certainly that's going to be a huge part of this season, that particular story that you just went on, how it ends up landing in a month and 6 months and a year. We'll see, then you can say it, they were able to prevail and it ended up motivating them. However, we'll see. It'll be interesting what the players have to say about it after the fact. Jerry, it's a good point. If you want to write your story about Michigan was able to do this without their coach, and then at the end, and what you're talking about 24 hours before Penn State, they didn't have him for Ohio State. I mean, what a story. I would also go to 2020 when Michigan just had 2 wins and Jim Harbaugh was on the sideline. And if they would have if they would have played to Ohio State, they probably would have, we had their brains beat in there, and it would have been, just a capper of, a long streak against the Buckeyes and haggard. Harbaugh looked a little haggard when you had see him there. And I think that most people thought, it certainly was worthy of a conversation. Like, maybe it's just, time to move on. And yet the coach who grew up, sometimes in Ann Arbor, and his dad was a coach at Michigan, and then he played at Michigan. And then for him to come back where he was trying to, he came back from almost being out the door, and to be able to reverse course and then to win the 3 years and then put him right here into the championship game. To me, the turnaround is an amazing story for Jim Harbaugh. I mean, I can't think of a better story about a coach that was ready to that close. And even the biggest Michigan fan, Jerry, you're one of the biggest, maybe you're the former player and everything else, but you couldn't have been you wouldn't have been shocked if they had said, well, we're moving on from Jim Harbaugh after the pandemic season. You felt like you could have been slamming your fist or anything down. And yet they stayed with him, and, the rest is history.
I'm going to share a little story about Coach Harbaugh. When I was playing at Michigan, I think I got a lot of coaching, let's say it that way, from our coaches. And in fact, I think I was probably one of the most coached players on that team. Then Jim Harbaugh comes in. And I actually felt sorry for Jim, because I think he received the coaching that I was getting directed at him. And all of a sudden, nobody's yelling at me anymore. But that was Jim Harbaugh. I remember Jerry Hanlon just, in his ear, Bo in his ear, constantly, and Jim always had that almost, excuse my expression, Denny, shit-eating grin, okay, on his face. He was always confident in himself, always felt good. Okay, fine, I made a bad mistake. Go ahead, rip on me, because I'm going to come back and get the next one. And that's what Jim Harbaugh is about, I think. He forget that play. Let's move on. Forget that season. Let's move on. And that's what he did. When I saw Jim the day of the game against Western Michigan, my son was the GA. And Jim knows Anthony real well. And they saw each other at the game. And I don't think Coach Harbaugh knew that Anthony was a student assistant at the time at Western. They met, and Anthony's pointing to me, and I'm and Jim's over here like this, pumping to me. Remember, this is after the 2020 season when everybody was after him. This was not a guy that looked like his job was on the line. This guy looked like a confident leader, somebody who was motivating his players, and that's Jim Harbaugh in a nutshell. I mean, I remember, like I said, Denny, I got yelled at, I think, more than anybody at the practice. Okay, when Jim came in, I felt sorry for Jim Harbaugh because he got all the yelling then, and that's him. It's here, and let's move on and win.
Well, let's talk about Monday night. Harbaugh and company look like they emptied the playbook against Alabama. I was wondering, I think we all wonder with a month and then, having the previous bowl games and losing them. And they said that they changed some things around. But one of the parts I was wondering is, do they have too much time in their hands to put too much stuff in? And yet, they went with a bunch of different stuff. Are they throwing the Khalil Mullings, down the field? It was clear that Samaj Morgan, they wanted to get him involved, and they were doing the double pass, which was amazing. They tried a lot of different things in this game, emptying that playbook. And now I'm wondering what they have up their sleeve. I don't think there is anything up the sleeve when it comes down to Washington. What do you think about the game when you think about the Huskies and the Wolverines for the championship on Monday night?
Well, first of all, our defense has got to show up and play arguably the best offense in the nation. And so Washington is they're very talented. Pennick, I remember him from Indiana. Great ball player. I mean, he beat Penn State. Remember that in that year. And so he's a great ball player. They've got great receivers to go with them. They're a very explosive offense. Don't know about their defense. We're going to find out how their defense stands up. I feel good about the game because I think our offense can control the pace. I think we can control the tempo of the game. I wouldn't be surprised to see longer drives, take up the clock a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised at a more methodical, more basic run game with us. And I don't know if they've ever seen that kind of stuff, to be honest with you. Offense on defense, it's going to be a great matchup. Their offensive line is the Joe Moore recipient this year. So obviously they've got talent up front. They've got talent at the receivers and tight end, and the quarterback is the Heisman Trophy winner. The running back, we'll see if he's able to go or what they're going to be able to do with that. But it's a great offensive team. But at the end of the day, Denny, there's the old adage: offense sells tickets and defense wins championships. And I like our chances with our defense.
You're right. They do say that about defense winning championships, and Michigan had the best defense, scoring defense in the country, and they look pretty good against Alabama. that defense as well. So I like Michigan because, you mentioned it when you were talking about, the possibility of sustained drives. They can also throw the ball. They can throw it. They can run it. On defense, yeah, they can stop the run, but, they've got some pretty good players back in that secondary that can cover. And we know with that defensive line, in particular, how the edges are playing. But, man, Chris Jenkins running 15 yards down the field to, snatch down Milrow. I mean, they've got athletes. They can get after the quarterback. They can collapse that pocket, and nothing's going to be more of a friend to the secondary than getting pressure on Penix, who can really spin it. So, I think Michigan they have them covered talent-wise, and that's why I like them as well. I think that they're going to win this game too.
I fear, as a defensive coordinator, as a head coach, I've always feared the quarterback that can run and then throw. The quarterback that can run typically tends to see the hole that opens up when you drop, and those are the ones that scare me. And what we did to Milrow, that was textbook. Well, 5 sacks, Denny, against Alabama in the first half. Are you kidding me? I mean, let's not say Alabama's offensive line is that horrible. They're not that bad. I mean, they're supposedly got 5-star players up there. The left tackle is a freshman. Yes, I understand that. But he's also a 5-star left tackle that weighs 360 pounds, and it takes you a day and a half to get around them, for crying out loud. Okay? So Alabama's deep offensive line was no joke. We made them look bad. No question about that. But they were no joke. It's going to be an interesting matchup to see our defensive line against their offensive line. That's going to be a big portion of this game.
Jerry, are you one that makes scores, or you just say Michigan wins? I mean,
Danny, I forgot to mention this. Well, by the way, congratulations. Did you put some money down on that game or what? Because you called it 27-20.
Well, I didn't put any kind of exacta down. That would have been nice, but
you did call it 27-20.
I did, Jerry. I did. I made a bullseye pick.
You did make a bullseye pick, Denny. It was right on.
Yeah. Well, now I feel the pressure about this one to kind of come up and come right back. I think people are going to pay attention to my pick more.
Absolutely,
week, if anything. But I'm interested in hearing your pick. I'll tell you, as I sit here, I'm thinking something like 35-27. I might adjust it a little bit both ways with Michigan coming out on top. But that has Michigan, covering the spread, and I think that has the game going over the 55. So over in Michigan, if you're out there, 35-27, at least how I'm thinking about it right now. I could change that heading in, a little bit later, but that's where I'm at right now.
All right, Denny. So you're going to put me on the spot. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go Michigan 34, Washington 24.
34-24. I'll take either one, Jerry. You get this one, and I know there's a lot of things to think about afterwards, from the coach to the quarterback to a lot of different things. But man, let's just see Monday, and then we'll start thinking about things Tuesday or Wednesday.
Absolutely.
Great job, Jerry. Have a great weekend. I know you'll enjoy Monday. We're looking forward to talking with you at some point after the game next week.
Hopefully, I'm going to be calling in after the game, and from Houston, and chat with you and Scar a little bit about the game.
I didn't know you. That's a little nice way to throw that in right at the end. I didn't know. I thought you were going to Vegas.
No, I am going to Vegas. I'm going to Vegas. I'm going to Houston, and I'm going right back to Vegas.
All right. Okay.
That's after the game, Denny. Let's get this win. We'll see.
Well, we look forward to that call, Jerry. Safe travels to the desert, and then down to H-Town and a championship. Don't come back from Texas empty-handed.
Hail to the victors, Denny.
There he is, Jerry Diorio. That's right. Jerry joining us here. How about Jerry going to the national championship game? Went to the Rose Bowl. And now he's headed out to Vegas. And then he's going to Houston. fly there. For people that are going to Houston, it is, the people that went to the Rose Bowl, like, this is it. This is just really a dream situation. I don't know if I've ever sat around on a Friday thinking, man, I can't wait till Monday. But that's exactly what's going on here. And it's just, it's a chance to be the once in a lifetime opportunity, the game you'll never forget. Now, you talk about the championships forever, and you go back, and it's a great part of it, being able to go back. And I think about 97 and all the different memories that you have, and all the things from the Colorado to Baylor to Notre Dame, Michigan turning it over 3 times in the second half against Notre Dame, all the games, and that's what this particular season. You'll go, we'll all go back, and we'll pick apart these games and relive them for the days, weeks, months, and years. I mean, I'm still doing that with 97. So to be able to do it in 2023, if it all goes well, which we all think it will on Monday, if I could recap this season really quick, you wait all year long for the games, and then this year, it was like last year, there weren't any like games that you thought Michigan was going to lose in the non-conference. East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green. You knew the Michigan was just going to mow through those games. And so, they did. And then starting out at Rutgers, and then you're thinking, well, they got the 2 road games, Nebraska and Minnesota, but nobody thought Michigan was going to lose those games. Maybe you thought like one of them was going to be closer than, but what did they win? 31-7, 45-7 against Nebraska, 52-10 at Minnesota. My point here is they just kept going. Indiana, those games, it was like, Michigan's going to win, and it was just by how much. And then we got to the second half of the season, and that's where, it was at Michigan State, and, and the Spartans, after what happened with their head coach, you knew that they weren't going to be any trouble this year, even though it was a rivalry game and everything else. But it was just on that Thursday that the Connor Stallion story came out. So that went into play. And then, you had Purdue, where that was the week that Stallions resigned. And, you had Ryan Walters, the head coach, running his mouth a little bit there. And then it went to, I get to all that because I go to Penn State. And, Tony Batiti, he's got, a judge. Michigan's waiting out there with whatever, 90 minutes before the prior, to kick off, not knowing whether their head coach is going to be out. I mean, that was wild. Come on. I mean, that was pretty wild. But starting, when was the Penn State game? November 11th. That game, 24-15, Michigan, the way that game was more intense and exciting than all of the previous games put together at that point. So what was that, 9 games, leading up to the Penn State game, all of the excitement in there. But then it just continued. I mean, since the Penn State game, the Maryland game was way closer than, you thought it was going to be, than we all thought it was going to be. 31-24, tight ball game there. And then, Ohio State always speaks for itself, but 30-24, that was one of the great games that, they're going to really beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. Yes, they were. And, the Big Ten championship game, and they're going to validate the season by being, yes, they're able to beat Iowa. And then the Rose Bowl, as much as I thought that they were going to win the game and, picked them to win the game. And then that's one of the great games in Michigan history, obviously. And, it's only just days removed. And that we'll just continue to talk about that one forever. And now it culminates in Monday. So it's all exciting. All of that, that's going on. So let's do it. I look forward. We'll see what happens this weekend. Pay attention to the feed. You might call some people up that are going to be down in Houston. Do have a basketball game at noon on Sunday. Monday we'll be here. Monday night. We'll do it all, and who knows into the night, into the morning on Tuesday, talking about Michigan. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue review this weekend, talking about this game, and certainly hope everybody is. I was going to say, enjoy yourself of this weekend as we wait for Monday. We've waited our entire lives for Monday. What's a couple other days to just sit back and wait, and then when Monday gets here, I don't know, man. If you had to go into work on Monday, just be like, look, you tell your boss, come on, maybe hopefully you are the boss. You just tell everybody else, like, you guys can all work. I'm just gonna sit here and I'm just sitting here. If I was going into work, seeing the same thing, I'm just sitting here, just waiting for tonight when the excitement begins. All right, everybody. Great weekend. We'll talk with you soon here on the Maize and Blue review. Thanks.